Hi guys, welcome to another video. And this time we are talking the currently best range of minis for the old world. And also the only one you can actually fully buy from the supported factions. Yes, today we are talking Warriors of Chaos. We are talking their full range, their availability, the pros and cons, and the wishes I have into the future. So let's get painting. What I have here is a simple Warrior of Chaos. Not because I don't have anything else for the faction, but because I do, just a foreshadowing, but because I wanted to show you that you can actually make a full army for the old world that is entirely made of new plastic models, even from the simple Chaos Warriors. And let me tell you, these models are insanely pretty. Of course, this is the newest iteration of Warriors of Chaos from the Slaves to Darkness range from Age of Sigmar, but as I said, this entire range can and should be used for the old world as well. Now I wanted to continue the trend of simple and fast paint job, but to the better tabletop standard than the old hammer plastic. Also, I wanted to come up with a paint scheme that I would be happy with for a larger force in the future. Foreshadowing again. So I started with the armor, because that, as a part of the mini that is for me the most recognizable throughout the whole range, just needs to be good. Of course, I want it to be black, but I hate just using black paint to do so because it is just boring. Instead, I went for a series of very light layers with an airbrush, going through various shades of green and grey. First olive green for the whole armor parts to set the tone for the rest, then using the green-grey for the first broader highlight of the visible part of the armor, and then pastel green as the last volumetric highlight for the armor. With each layer I went smaller and smaller, but also I did dilute the paint more and more to get more control with the less opaque paint. At this point the armor seems quite light, but don't get fooled because I went over the whole mini with heavy black oil wash. I let the mini sit for a while and then wiped the paint with a dry makeup brush. I did not use any white spirit because I don't want to remove all the paint. I still want the black in the recesses, but also I want the oily filter over the highlighted parts of the armor. This does not just darken the armor, but really tone it down to the black parts of the spectrum, but still keeping it interesting. I did use green, but you can do the same thing with any other color. I just felt like the green would be nice, and I do like the Nurgle best, so there you have it. Now I know that it is a lot of quite heavy steps for a simple paint job tutorial, but the whole thing took me less than half an hour, and with larger volumes of minis it would be more time efficient than for me now. And that is what you want for the games like Old World, where you have units of 20 of these warriors. At this point I wanted to get the feeling for the rest of the mini, so I blocked all the different parts. After some thinking I decided for the classic red fabric look, brown and ochre for the pelt and leather and fur, and brass and silver non-metallic metal for the metal parts of the mini. For the boots and gloves I used simple wash of black lotus just to give it some pigment, but I don't want this part to draw any eyes and I don't want it to spend time on it in larger volumes. Now for the cloak and other fabric on the mini. As I said, I wanted a classic red, but not too bright. Again, to draw the eyes, so I started with just two colors, dark red ochre and primary red from Scale Color Artist, and mixed my way through the full spectrum. First, just base coat of dark red ochre, then mix of 50-50 with the primary red, mostly for the outer visible parts of the cloak, but still covering a lot of surface. This paint is not so opaque, so I gave it a few coats, but always covering smaller and smaller surfaces of the cloak until I was happy with the result. Then I went just over the already mostly highlighted surfaces with just the primary red. Until now it seemed more like a dark brown, but the last primary red coat makes it look recognizably red. Then I mixed a light skin tone into the red to get this pinkish tone and made my edge highlights and some texture for the highlighted fabric. And I have to be honest with you, at this point I started to be really happy by the paint job. I was excited about the vision I had, but sometimes it takes a few steps for the scheme to click, and for me it was the fabric. It took some time to paint, but I was so excited after that I just could not stop painting, because for me it really finalized the scheme and the rest was just easy. Not just from the painting side, but also mentally. It is a great exercise to see when the paint scheme clicks together. From here I used mostly neutral colors for the rest of the mini, like the browns for the fur and around his shoulders. Here I went from dark purple into yellow ochre and then buff from Scale Color Artist, using mostly side of the brush for the overbrush technique, since the fur is heavily textured. And the highlights just with the buff is enough to get some nice brown fur for his back. It is not a Warrior of Chaos without some brass trims. These minis are great because it is mostly their shields that have some metallic qualities, so it is not that time consuming as, for example, their 40k counterparts. I mean, I painted just one Chaos Legionnaires unit and I wanted to throw them out of the window. But there is just shields, the weapons and some trinkets around the body. I used simple brassy brass for the job, and to have some contrast in material I used simple chainmail metal for his knees and other trinkets. And also highlighted the brassy brass with the chainmail silver. Now I went back to the armor. Although I was quite happy with the main scheme and result, I wanted to do at least a very simple highlight, so I used basically the same color I did throughout the airbrush. Ending the highest highlights on the pastel green, mostly on the armor, around the head and on the shield. I used this opportunity to finish the shield. I wanted the runes to glow with inner power a little bit, so I used watered down white paint for the base, so the paint flows right into the rune, and then used purple contrast paint throughout the airbrush and carefully went over the runes, not really caring about the overspray. Because of the dark background, the paint is not really visible on the shield, just on the runes, and then I went with orange contrast paint and made these little dots in the corners of the runes. So they have the inner lighting effect, but not consistent around the whole rune. This makes it look quite interesting in my opinion, and is a really fast way to approach this theme. The last thing that remains is the weapon and the dreaded head. I wanted a very simple non-metallic metal for the eggs. So I used violet grey, arctic blue, buff and off-white, and slowly covered smaller and smaller surfaces with thin lines and glazes over and over again, and honestly it is really boring method, but very calming for the repetitive movement, but very boring for the camera. So instead, let's talk about Warriors of Chaos as a faction. Now, as I said, they are in a really weird place in the old world, because they have a complete range out in the Age of Sigmar. But not only that, because the way they work in the AOS, you have so much option for your faction, it is actually crazy. Like, you can choose out of at least dozen different units of Marauders, from Warcry or other cultist mobs. The same goes for the Warriors of Chaos, and especially Chosen. Like, you can use the standard Chosen from S2Ds, but you can as well use Blight Lords from Megatkin or of Nurgle or Khorne Berserkers and other variants from the different gods. Basically, you had the option that everyone wanted back in the day, but they had to kit bash their way out of it. Because back then it was just one Chaos Warrior with his shield next to his chin, and that was it. And that goes for the larger stuff, beast and cavalry as well, and also chariots. And don't even let me start it on the Demon Princes, because that's the model that is right now released is just great. The bad thing is that the way they are right now is quite expensive for the old world faction, because you don't have the option for the larger units in boxes like with the now 3 factions announced. Like, you cannot buy a box of 20 Chaos Warriors. This makes me actually quite interested to see how the GW will handle their release, and what models are coming back or are new in the range. I feel like some characters are really needed, not just for the old world, but also for the AOS. Like, I don't really follow the Age of Sigmar, but why is there no Chaos Lord or Dragon? Just the stupid Archeon model. So that may be something to come because the rules are there. And that is something I would really love to see as a new addition for the Slaves to Darkness as well, but they don't even have the rules for this model, so maybe with the next edition we will get something good. Other than that, there is only one model I do want, and there is no way they are bringing him back because he won't be alive for some time, but the old Archeon model on horse is just top tier. I know they put him on a made to order basis a while back, but I do regret not getting him, but something like that is really needed for the both ranges. But other than that, I feel like Warriors of Chaos are in a really good place model wise right now, and I was very tempted to do them as an old world army with the collection I have been gathering for some time now, foreshadowing again. But the worst thing about the whole between two systems range are the bases, and Warriors of Chaos are the worst for it. It is because they have mostly bigger bases in the AOS than in the old world, so the converters do not really work. If you found a way, let me know in the comments down below, but I don't really see that way. But back to the mini. The last thing that remains is the face, and I thought quite some time about it, but the picture of Darth Maul in my head is just persistent, so I left the majority of the head dark and used just a purple wash for the top of the head, and over it I used a primary red for the tattoos. Now the head is way too small for the Darth Maul tattoos, but I tried my best and by doing these little dots on his nose, eyebrows, and I ended on his forehead in the spike. And the same way I did the cheeks. Also continuing on the temples and the head again, in the same spikes, not really touching each other. It made quite a nice tattoo effect of 3 spikes on his forehead with tattooed face. It was really hard to paint something like that on the camera, so I apologize, but you will see it in the final results. But with that, the paint job is done. Speaking of, here are the final results. I really enjoyed this mini so much, I just want to paint more of the Warriors of Chaos, and let's be honest, I will. The AOS 4th edition is coming, and I do want to be ready to jump into another GW game. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know in the comments down below or leave a like. And subscribe if you want to support the channel. It means a lot to me. And with that, I will see you very soon. Bye.